Hey, good afternoon. Pastor Dana Coverstone, Living Word Ministries, Brooksville, Kentucky. I'm going to be sharing a dream I had between December 19th and 23rd. This stretched out over several days, several nights, and just going to share it, leave it at it. I know a lot of folks made a lot of comments. Even there's already somebody here who said, prophecies are false. Oh, for my people, that dreams are symbolic. Confirm what you say I said. Dreams are for you to pray about, think about, look at, and then decide what to do with them. I believe this one's very, very easy to figure out what it's about, what it's saying. But I also just want to make a point. I'm going to continue to share dreams. I'm going to continue to share what God's showing me, and people can say what they want, do what they want with them. I'm not really bothered by that. I'm simply going to say them, share them. I know that I've got to be obedient to what the Lord's showing me, so I'm going to do that. And regardless of comments or people or negative whatever, I'm going to continue to share them. So here it is. It's a dream that I had December 19th through the 23rd of this year. I saw the United States Capitol building, and it was fully lit up. And the tower part had large arms, like human arms attached to it. The arms were muscular, and they had short sleeves and very rough-looking hands. When I say rough-looking working hands, I mean hands that had worked the ground, hands that had its hands on, that had been on a plow or working with machinery, or in other words, hard-working hands. The Capitol building was also flying the flag that Betsy Ross designed, with 13 stars in a circle in the top left-hand corner. So I knew this had to do with the starting of American history. Across from the Congressional building was a traditional style looking church. It also had arms attached to the steeple. The arms were very muscular and very similar to the arms of the Capitol building. Both had rough hands and arms that knew work. You could see the veins popping out, the muscles, the work. These were hands that were not afraid to get themselves dirty or work hard. And they were they had short sleeve work shirts on. The hands were not necessarily dirty, but they obviously were dry and cracked, and obviously been working in the fields or on equipment, something like that. So you get the idea. These hands have been working hard. Behind the church, there were standing religious leaders that were wearing, I saw like several Catholic cardinals. I saw early 1900s and late 1800s style preachers with the long black coat and Bibles in their hands. Behind the Capitol building, there were some older style congressmen. If you met Colonel Sanders, it dressed kind of like Colonel Sanders, older style, northern, professional dress. But they seemed older. The clothing did, but they also seemed very professional. And each group was cordial towards each other at the beginning of this dream. The hands shook. The state hands shook the church hands, and they seemed to get along. They stood in their locations. They were respecting each other's sides, supporting each other as well. And then the sky began to move and shift and change. It would look like a scene from the H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, where the sky, the day is going faster and faster and faster, and finally, as it's changing, times change, times shift, becomes a little bit more modern in that regards. And as the scene slowed down, I noticed that the Capitol building arms were now long-sleeved, and they had very expensive cufflinks, gold cufflinks with diamonds all over. Obviously, very, very expensive cufflinks. And the hands were no longer rough. They were very soft and had manicured nails. Looked like they had not touched an axe or a shovel or been in the dirt for any amount of time at all. The roughness was entirely gone too. The Capitol building, was well maintained and very well lit. Both buildings were very well lit, but it looked as if they'd been taken care of and polished. The church appeared to have the same kinds of muscled arms with rough hands, and they seemed dry and cracked. And those hands were in constant motion, but no sleeve, no cufflinks. Just they appeared to be very similar to what they were from the scene I'd seen earlier. The Capitol suddenly put their hands together firmly like this, popped their knuckles, and pointed to the church in a very accusing way. And the church hands, they just kept moving and working. There was even blood on their hands. And I think in a sense, like from sacrifice. The hard work they had done was causing their hands to crack and bleed. and they were working on something. The capital hands then went up like this, like to stop the church from moving forward. And the church stopped in its tracks. And the church hands were moving like, hey, we got to get by here. We need to get by you. We need to get past you. We've got work to do. There's a gospel to preach. They weren't saying those things, but the hands were indicating that they needed to get by the capital. So the church tried to move by, and the capital moved over and stood right in its way and put its hands up like this. Well, then the church started to go around again, and the capital pushed them down to the ground. So they go in the dirt. And the church wipes itself off, gets up, tries to walk by again, and they got pushed down one more time. So, but the church wasn't backing down. The church was caught. They're trying to look around, see what's going on, trying to figure out they want to get by. And so they're walking back up. They were not backing down, or they weren't stopping from the ground. But each time they got up, they just kept coming back towards the state or the capital. Now, the people behind the church, they were very timid, very, very worried, because the people standing behind the Capitol building, they were grimaced and arms folded and just looking like you can't move. You don't need to do anything. What's going on? You just can't move. You're going to stay right there. Then I saw the church do this, popped its knuckles. And they set its face towards the area behind the Capitol and just tried to walk by the stage. And this time the church said strongly, we need to get by, and we're going to do it right, but we must be allowed to pass. And the state simply said, not on our watch. That was the response of the state. So now both sides have their pastors set to do what they're doing, or both sides are going to do what they're going to do. The state then grabbed the church by the throat, pushed it back and down. But the church got back up and pushed back against the state. So it's starting to get violent. The church bent itself down, leaned into a state, and put its back foot down. That literally braced itself on the ground and pushed forward. And they were both straining against each other. As they were pushing and contending and wrestling, almost like a wrestling match, one of the capital arms slipped a seed, just a very, very dark, almost black type seed, into the back pocket of the church. At the same time, some of those standing behind the church saw the hustle and bustle, and they moved over to stand behind the building, the Capitol building. And the Capitol then said the church needed to stand down, but the church said, we won't. So there was a standoff. And as the standoff is going on, looking at each other and kind of pushing each other, this large thorny vine was growing out of the back pocket of the church. And it was coming up behind, around the back, wrapping around the body of the church, wrapping around the building of the church, going up into the arms of the church, and trying to wrap around the neck, and even trying to go down the throat of the church. And when the Capitol building saw this, it just kind of stepped back and went like this, like it could go on by. Now, the flowers on this vine were red, just a very, very bright, almost blood red. And they were biting the church. And they were wrapping around the legs of the church. And it kept growing. And once again, as I said, it went into the mouth of the church, went down its throat, and was trying to surround its heart. So by this time, the Capitol building is not even concerned about the church. They're not even looking. They're just doing their own thing over there. But the church, the church building itself, I realized at this moment has a left arm that is red, blood red, almost like the color of the vines. The right hand of the church is a white hand. Now, not like white skin, like of a white Caucasian person, but just like white paper, 8.5, just piece of paper, that kind of white. So the distinction, it's has nothing to do with the color of people. It has to do with just the purity, I guess, the white. The leaves on this vine that appear like the flags also have these unusual symbols on them. And that left hand, the white hand is trying to pull the vine. The red hand is trying to slap away the white hand to keep the white hand from pulling off the vine. The red hand is trying to protect the vine that's going around the church. So this results in a fight. And the two hands are trying to protect. One's trying to protect the church. One's trying to strip it from the church. And as the struggle continues, the Capitol just looks at the church, trying to assess the strength. But it's over there handing out money, it's signing bills, it's shaking hands. And it's shaking hands with business leaders and professional-looking people from all the different nations, different nationalities, and that sort of thing. At this moment, the church begins to shake violently, like it was having a grand mal seizure, and the chest kind of opened up, and it revealed this heart that had been squeezed almost to death by this vine. The heart was beating barely. The white hand took a knife, just kind of appeared in his hand, took a knife, and pierced the root, the root wrapped around that heart, the vine root. I'm going to call it a vine root. And that vine automatically began to wither. It just almost like the life went out of it, and it fell away from the heart, and the heart went back to its normal size and was pumping like it should be pumping. The red hand made a fist and punched the steeple, doing this. Tried to grab the white hand, but its strength was fading. It was letting go, and it finally just dropped to the side, the left side of the church. And the church took a few steps, but its strength was fading, and it dropped down to the ground on its knees. And that white hand just kind of dropped to the side. Then both hands came up. Red hand's kind of gone now. They're both the white kind of hands. It unbuttons the shirt, and it falls to its knees. And the church asks forgiveness for allowing that red root to grow in his heart. And then that Christ figure that I've seen in so many visions and dreams appeared, and he just embraced the church. He pulled the building towards himself, so the Christ figure was facing ahead at the Capitol building, and the church he was holding on to like this was looking behind Jesus. And he suddenly pointed at the stage, the Capitol building, and he said, "You never wanted the church to succeed, but the gates of hell will not stop her. And those who have seen the root will prune the vine and cut off the poisonous part." And then he let go of the church, and he kind of pulled her out to his side. And he said, he pointed at the church, and he said, "Be about my Father's business. Stay pure, and fear not the state, for they know not what they do." And the church then slowly walked past the Capitol and all the people who were standing with it, including some religious figures. Got just a few yards past the Capitol building, the state, and then it just took off running. I mean, took off running. Both hands that were now white were up like this as the church was running. Not in a fighting position. They were open, and they were like sharing things, information, spreading the gospel. But laying at the feet of the Capitol was the root of that seed that had been planted in the church's back pocket. And it looked to me like if you can imagine a sweet potato that is just blood red, deep red. It looks like it's maybe rotted. That's what it looked like. And then the Christ figure appeared once again and said clearly these words: "Stay braced, stay focused, and stay on task, for I am coming soon." I think what the Lord is trying to tell us is very simple. We need to continue to fight to get the gospel out. We cannot stop praying. We cannot stop seeking his face. We can't say, well, we're January now, the 2020 is over, we're good to go. No, we have got to hunker down in our prayer life, hunker down in our prayer time, hunker down in our time in the Word. This is not the time to just relax. I really believe we're in the dream where I saw us holding our breath. And we can't just stop praying. Folks, we need to be praying more now than we ever prayed before. We need to be more tuned to the Spirit and using more discernment than we've ever used before. Now is the time for us to really truly listen to what the Holy Spirit is saying to us and be the church, be the body of Christ. Don't be intimidated by censorship. Don't be intimidated by those that say stop talking about those things. We still need to keep praying for people and praying and praying and praying like we never prayed before. That Christ figure has appeared to me several times in those dreams. And every time I hear the word brace yourself, I'm reminded of what we got to do. And he said, stay braced, stay braced. Many people believe that once January 1st, the calendar turns over, everything changes and shifts. I don't think so. Once we get a president in, it's going to change and shift. I don't think so. I think most of you that are awake and alert spiritually know that there's something going on. Things are happening around us. Something is happening around us. There's been compromise in the church. There's been struggles in the church. There's division in the church. There's a church that is awake, and there's a church that has no idea what in the world is happening. And I know which part of the church I want to be in. And there's always going to be wheat and tares. There's always going to be wheat and tares. But we got to continue to do the work we've been called to do, because Paul said, "Work while it's yet day." So, folks, keep praying, keep seeking His face. And I'm hearing from more and more of you that are yourselves having dreams, having visions. I'm hearing from more and more of you that are having prophetic words, things that you feel like you need to say. And that's what Joel said would happen when Peter quoted him in Acts chapter 2. "In the last days, I'll pour my spirit out on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your young men will have visions, and your old men will have dreams." So keep walking in the Spirit. Keep walking in those things, and keep trusting the Lord to use you like never before. Pray about the dream. Ask the Lord to show you things about the dream. If He shows you nothing, that's fine. I just know when I have the dreams and when I sense I'm supposed to share them, that's what I'm doing. And thanks for taking the time to listen.